If you ever created a SharePoint list with more than 15 or 20 columns, you exactly know what I'm talking about. You click on New, and you want to enter the data, and you have to scroll down all the way to enter all the values. It's not that bad. It gets really ugly when you try to edit, because you're looking to edit just one field, and then all of a sudden you have to eyeball maybe 15, 20 different fields to find the field that you want to update. In this video, I want to show you how you can make multi-page forms inside SharePoint. So stay with me and we convert that long list to maybe 2 or 3 small pages that groups the fields more logically and make it more presentable to the end user. Stay with me. The plan in this demo is to create this view out of this. So I have a list with these columns. I want to change the design of this edit form and make it multi-pages and distribute the fields into different pages. But before I really get into this fancy looking multi-page form, I would like to make it very simple with a radio group. So if I put a radio button here for page 1 and page 2, somebody can click on page 1 and it shows the fields related to page 1, and then this person clicks on the radio on page 2 and it selects items on page 2. To do that, here is a process. First, we need to plan it carefully. Keep it in mind, we need to keep all the required fields in one page. This is important. It doesn't mean that if you don't do that, the solution will not work, but if you don't follow this basic rule, users will be quite confused. Next step, we add radio button to the form and add the page titles to the radio group. Then we set the default page to the page that contains all the required fields. And finally, we save, publish, and test. So let's start the work. To do this work inside SharePoint, I created a list called test1. So if I open it, you will see inside it there is title, F1, F2, F3, and comments. And if I click on new, you will see this form that contains all these fields. So the only thing that you need to keep in mind is that title and F3 are required. Let me show you. If F3, if I click on it and I go to edit column setting, you see that more options, you see that this column is also required. So it requires that the column contains information and the default value is none. So when someone creates a form, if he or she does not add the value for this, the form should return error. So let me just cancel this. We are all good. So let's continue. First thing is to plan the pages carefully so that all the required fields are in one page. So let's decide. Let me click on this new. So title is required and F3 must be in one page. So title, F1, and F3 are going to be in page 1. F2 and comments are going to be in page 2. And that's good enough. I mean, I really don't want to add a third page. You can expand this concept on your own. So I just canceled that. For us, the planning is done. We add the radio button to the form and add page titles to the radio. So let's see how it is done. So if I'm inside SharePoint, just make sure no item is selected. So if you click on, for example, this item, and if an existing item is already selected, you do not see the link to the Power Apps. So just make sure nothing is selected. So the Power Apps dropdown appears. Click on this and you click on Customize Forms. Now it opens that form inside Power Apps. Now that we have the form here, let's examine it and understand what's going on inside it. Inside this, I have title, F1, F2, and all these fields. But here is the thing. The entire thing is inside a form. So first we have form screen, which refers to the entire screen that the content is inside it. But when I click on the SharePoint form, this is the form that is actually bound to this test1. And inside it, every single field that you see here is a data card. And inside the data cards, you have the controls. So the controls that you have inside title is start visible, error message, data card, and all those things, which doesn't really matter. The only important element is error message that shows you the error in case the invalid entry is there in the text box or in any one of those controls. And we actually really don't need to make any changes into it. We just need to make sure that its function is preserved with whatever the changes that we make. So I click on the title, so I click on the card, and you see the whole card is selected with whatever that is inside it, and the same way I can navigate through all those items. Great. So first thing that I do, I select the form, the entire container, and get the top of it and drag it down. In this way, I can create some space here that I can add the radio button on the top of the page. So the second step, we need to add the radios on the top of the page. Click, make sure somewhere blank inside the screen is selected, and then we click on Insert, Input, and I can easily add radio. Radio is added, and I just need to add the fields there. The fields that I need to add here instead of this radio sample, it has to be a JSON array. So I put square bracket, so it's going to be page 1, for example, comma, page 2. Fantastic. 2 pages are added. Let me just select this. I really don't like this vertical layout. I want it to be horizontal so it looks more like page structure. To do that, I select this radio, I click on Advanced and search for Layout. And I change the vertical layout to horizontal. There we go. So if I just expand it now, it looks like this. The other thing that I need to do, I need to make sure one of them is selected as default. Keep in mind that during the planning, I decided to put all the required fields in page 1. So first thing that I do, I select this and I click on the properties that this guy has, and I select the default value, and default value is going to be page 1. As soon as I do that, you see that page 1 is selected. So I added the radio button to the form and added the page titles to the radio, page 1, page 2. I also set the default page to the page that contains all the required fields. And now this is the moment of truth. We want title to be visible when page 1 is selected. So I select the title, just make sure that the card is selected, not the controls inside it. I select the property visible, and I say this should be visible when radio 1 dot selected dot value equals page 1. And I do exactly the same thing for the others. F1 is going to be displayed in page 1. So F1 is selected. I click on the visible and I just paste the same thing here. So F1 is going to be displayed when the page 1 is selected. F2, I don't care. F3 is another required field. Again, make sure that the card is selected. I click on the drop down. I click on visible. And I just add the same thing here. Great. So if I want to test it now, and if I click on this run, when page 1 is selected, everything is displayed. When page 2 is selected, only F2 comments and attachments are displayed. So let me close this and set the conditions for these two now. So I click on F2. Just again, make sure that the card is selected. Click on the visible. And I paste the same thing here, but now this time I want this control to be displayed when the selected value is page 2. I copy the same thing and I apply it for comments. So comments is selected. Again, I go to visible and I paste this guy here. Same thing, I want to do it with attachment. So again, visible, and I paste the same expression here. Now it should look good. So when I run it, page 2, it shows these items. Page 1, it shows everything that should be displayed in page 1. Let's save and test it. So I close this, that's okay. File, save, and publish to SharePoint. It's published, so let's go back to SharePoint and see how it works. So test 1, I select this and I click on edit. So you see I have page 1 and page 2. And everything works perfectly. Now let me explain one thing for you. Why I put all the required fields on the first page. I click on here, so nothing is selected. I click on new, and there is nothing here. I click on page 2, so I don't enter anything for page 1 and page 2. I enter some dummy values in F2, maybe some dummy values for the comments, and I click on save. There is an error, but user really doesn't know where the error is because you're not displaying anything here. So one more thing that we need to do when the error happens, when the save fails, we need to flip this page to page 1. This is how we do it. I go back to my Power Automate, I go back to the designer, and this time I select the form, and this is the form that submits the data. I go to the events, and when I go to the event, I say on failure. When the failure happens, I want this control, this radio button, go to page 1. And to do that, all I need to do, I need to reset radio 1. Close and save. And that's it. Let's test it again. So file, publish to SharePoint. So inside SharePoint, I just refresh it. Test 1. And if I click on new now, I don't enter anything here. I go to page 2. I enter some dummy values here again. I click on save, and you see, as soon as the error happens, it flips me to page 1, and I see all the error messages here. That is the important part, because if you have the required fields or anything that may cause error in multiple pages, it's going to be quite confusing for the user. While when it happens like this, user is immediately transferred to the default page that contains all the errors that should be addressed. And now I think it makes sense that why I said you need to put all the required fields in one page. And this is the time that you push that like button so that I can continue with more energy. Thank you. So we saved, published, and tested it. Now let's go and make it something fancier like this. To do that, I go back to Powerapps again. I open the app again. And I need to replace the radio buttons with something fancier. And that something fancier is going to be a gallery. Let me show you how it works. So the first thing that I do, I don't want to delete this radio because I need to use it later. Just make sure that the form is selected. So I pull it down a little bit. I make more space here for my gallery. Make sure that the screen is selected. And I click on the gallery. And I want to add a horizontal gallery here. Looks big and weird. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. The layout that you selected doesn't really matter. Just select the image that is displayed here by default and just get rid of it. You will get an error here because the location of these controls inside it are decided or somehow dynamic based on the image that was there. So you click on this drop down, edit in the formula bar, and the Y for this control, for this top control, which is calculated by the image information, just get rid of it and put a fixed number. For example, let me just delete it, and I set it to, for example, 5, which is going to be the space from this top label to the top of the container. Let me just get rid of the second one. I really don't need that. So I just keep the title. Okay, here. Now, this gallery requires some data content. Now, just like before, for this gallery, I need to provide the data source. I don't need to pick it up from anywhere. I just come here and type it in the same way that I did it for the radio group. So it's going to be page 1, comma, page 2. And as you can see, all these items appear here. Again, when the gallery is selected, I can make the changes. I can bring it a little bit higher. Let me just select and change the size of this container inside it. Then I select the gallery itself. Okay. And now I can make these controls a bit smaller and smaller. Now everything fits in one page. So instead of radio button, now I have a gallery. The important thing about the gallery is that gallery has a property called template fill. And template fill basically says what is the background of every cell. And that background by default is nothing. It is a black color, but the opacity is 0, so it's basically transparent no matter what it is. If I change this color, for example, to red, and I select this red, you will see the background is going to be red. Now, this is not what I want. I want to say if the item is selected, make it red. So I would say if this item dot is selected, make it red. Otherwise, make it white. How do you like it? Now, if I run this, when I click on page 1 is red. When I click on page 2 is red. Great. So somehow we achieved a tab structure. And if I just come back here and I select this form and change the fill color to red, and I expand it a little bit to come under the other control, looks like we have a tab on the top of the page. The only thing that we need to do, we need to set the visibility of these items coming from this gallery than the radio button. Great. So we're good to go. I select the title. Instead of radio, I pick gallery 1 dot selected dot value. I copy this. I go to the second one. Again, gallery 1 dot selected dot value. I go to the third one, and again, same thing. So if I test it now, and if I click on this button, you see that page 1 shows everything that needs to be displayed on page 1. But when I click on page 2, it doesn't show me anything because the page 2 items, they are not still bound to the gallery. So I click on this one, I close it. Now, oh gosh, I need to display those items somehow here. So if I click on page 2, it shows me everything. Even if it's not displayed here, not a big deal. You can come back here under form. Remember on page 2, we were supposed to show F2. So I just select everything here, but instead of page 1, I put page 2 here. So this item shows on page 2. F3 was supposed to go on page 1. We are good. Comments is supposed to go to page 2, but shouldn't be bound to radio. So again, I paste the same value here. So I just need to change it to page 2. And finally, attachments, same thing. Copy and paste, and it's going to be displayed as page 2. Great. So let me just save it now. File, save. I don't publish it yet. I want to try it first here. So if I click on page 1, it shows me page 1 items. If I click on page 2, it shows me page 2 items. I don't need these radio buttons on the top anymore. So I click on radio, delete, and I just save it. Control S, and it saves everything. Now, but before we save and publish it to SharePoint, there is one thing that we need to consider. You see this button here? It shows us something. And if I click on this app checker, it shows me there is something wrong in one of these formulas. Can you guess what? This is the error. Name isn't valid. Identifier on failure. Yes. Remember after we deleted that radio button? Still, when error happens on this form, on failure, it's trying to reset radio 1, while actually it has to reset gallery 1. Save, Control S. It is saved. So now we are all good. You see, error is gone. I can click on File, Publish to SharePoint, and we're good to go. I need to refresh this page, and then I click on New, and it shows everything. Page 1, page 2, and let me see if it saves anything. First of all, Happy Pet, page 2, some content, and I click on Save. The content is added. Let's see if the error handler still works properly. So I click on page 1. So on page 1, I don't add anything. On page 2, I add something, and I click on Save. And now it takes me here, and it shows me these errors under it, that with this fantastic color selection that I did for the background, probably it's a little bit hard to see. But regardless, it works, and the exception handler is functional, so I can select the proper values and happily save it. And finally, as a bonus point, if you have lots of fields here, and even when you update this list, still you don't have that much of real estate to fit your fields or to add multiple pages, because you can see, I mean, here maximum I can put like 1, 2, or 3. 4 looks ugly. So to get over that problem, here is the solution. You can always go back inside Power Automate, click on File, and click on the settings of the app that you have. In this case, you can go for landscape design, and if I click on Apply, and I go back to my application, you see it looks a lot bigger now. So I can expand this guy to the end, and I save it. And then I can go on the File menu, Publish to SharePoint, Publish. And if I go back inside SharePoint now, refresh the page, and I click on New, you will see I have a lot of space here. And you can actually add more pages, or you can even have multiple columns inside every single one of those forms. Okay. I know many of you were expecting Power Automate videos, especially if you are my channel subscriber. But keep it in mind that among my channel subscribers, I have quite a few SharePoint consultants that once in a while I have to give them some love. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you liked the video, don't forget to push that like button and let me know that you enjoyed this video so I can produce more content of this type. Again, if you are not a subscriber, consider subscribing and joining my channel so you won't miss the updates. Till next video, stay safe and enjoy coding.